he asked me if I'd like to join the group. I said, well, who are you? A new wave and whatnot. And they invited me to New York to the studio to check out some of their material, and which was Sigma Sound.
Right.
You know?
Yeah.
And I heard the stuff and saw what they wanted to do. They had to inject themselves with, y'all know what. And the rest is history. And what was interesting, that they kind of worked the same way we did, P-Funk, in the studio. And I guess myself and Lynn Mabry and Alex Weir from the Brothers Johnson on rhythm guitar, and Steve Scales on percussion from Sagittarius, vocalist. She moved to Europe. Tina Turner. Anyway, we injected some funkisms on them, and then they would stop making sense, and the rest is history. So the similarities, it was there. And then I found out afterwards, after I'd been with them a couple of years, they told me they used to sneak into P-Funk shows when they were art students in Providence. So I said, oh, okay, so.
I think I probably went to the same show, the Mothership show in '74, with Brothers Johnson opening up, and that was in Providence, and I snuck into that show too. So actually, I had a press pass. Whatever, same difference. Mr. LeBlanc, where were your roots when you were coming up? Were you listening to these guys, or were you more into the New Orleans thing, or what was going on?
Oh, definitely. In New Orleans, music is life. And I'm from New Orleans, I'm a drummer, so Zigaboo kind of introduced me to him from the bottom up, not from the commercial component, but from what the grassroots of the rhythms were, locking in with the bass. Then you go into the keyboard, and the vocals is like the icing on the cake, but you got to get that funk in first. So my introduction to them was from a grassroots point. I was raised in New Orleans housing projects. So you hear the music all the time. I mean, it's playing more than a television set in that time, in the early 70s. And Zigaboo and the brass band people in the community kind of took me to the side and was, giving it to me from that level. And I was like, man, I hear what we're doing in New Orleans. I hear what they're doing. People think it's so far in the New Orleans second line rhythm, as we call it, in the funk, but it's really the same. It comes from that same meter, no pun intended, the meters, but it comes from that same meter of distinction. So I mean, I'm really blessed, they've learned it from there at such a young age. I never thought I would be performing with them. I mean, when I was young, Bootsy probably doesn't remember, we were a brass band from New Orleans, and we were on a tour in France. And when we got there, they didn't want to tell us before we left who was going to be the headliner, But when we got there overseas, and they told us then, and we were like, man, you lied. You never think, y'all going to be opening up for them or whatever. I was like, my God. Then, as I got older, they told us George is coming down and to Tipitina's, and y'all going to be opening up. And so I already was introduced to Bootsy, so I'm really not thinking I'm going to see George. And I remember he came up the steps and I met you first. And then George came in like a regular person. I mean, you got to realize these guys don't have any airs about them, no funny acting ways. They came up the stairs to the dressing room, talked to us just like today, hugs and dapping up what's going on in your life, and then we go and get down. And they asked us to come back and play with them. We did our opening thing. You think that's it because they rush you off the stage. I mean, when you're opening act, because they got to set up all the amps and everything. But it was like, no, they were telling them, look, they're gonna come back, we're gonna call them up, and they did, you know, and I appreciate it, man, I love it. But the folks in the house.
In making the movie, you see that the people, the musicians who make funk, there's a lot of love between the musicians. You know, through time and respect. There's respect from the young to the old. It's amazing. Like, to me, like no other music really. But I wanted to ask George, as the conceptualist, how did you keep your ears open in the studio? Because I'm a producer, and the idea of hearing all these different things flying around and then making the decision of what you want to keep and what you don't. And there's a part in the film where Dawn talks about the background vocals and saying, you know, they'd be singing, humming something in the corner, and you go, oh, put that one down. And,
you know, having worked at Joe Bett, Motown, you were exposed to a lot of different styles. Smokey, Hollander, Yalla, Barry, Mickey Stevenson. You was exposed to Ashford Simpson, a lot of different styles. So being in the studio with Bernie, who I've known since about 10, 11 years old, when he went away to college to be a classical piano, I knew what he could do. I knew that I would use whatever he did. I didn't have to know what he's doing. We had
you trusted.
I trusted whatever. I wouldn't let nobody else tell him what to do. I just said, leave him alone. Bootsy ain't no way in the world you gonna tell me you know what Bootsy is doing. It feels good. His brother, you know, you recognize that from James Brown record. That was set. I didn't have to know what they were doing. So I mean, that automatically.
You brought them in because you knew they were gonna do the right thing.
I'm not gonna say I got to find my part. Go along with it. That's all I've got. And so, having been at Joe Bett Motown, I just combined all the different styles of music, even before Motown.
Well, you did Testify. You knocked that on the head too.
And I was doing like everybody else at that time, imitating Bob Dylan in an with an R&B voice. You know, like, a lot of people don't realize that's what Mick Jagger was doing. Levi and the Four Tops. Yeah. You know, Bernadette, people are searching for the kind of love that we possess. He's a singer, but that was the common thing at that time. Yeah. To get
I gotta say, Mr. Clinton also had enormous vocal range. When I first met him, and even before I joined the group, I went to see him at a grammar school in Plainfield, New Jersey, when I could sneak out the house and get out the house. I went to see Parliament. It was just Parliament at the time, and I heard him sing this ballad, "Be Ever Wonderful." It was silly. And the range.
He had the falsetto.
He had the falsetto, pure, beautiful, and clear.
And that was it. Doo-wop was our first music from the 50s. Right. You know, Good Night, Sweetheart, all that stuff. And like you said.
So do you feel that doo-wop? Well, it obviously came in with the backgrounds on Funkadelic.
Lots of vocals, and then also Louis Jordan.
Right.
You know, who was a big band, but the horn players did the singing. So when we did songs like "We Want the Funk," we wanted. I want people some they can sing.
It's sing along. Anyone can sing.
You don't want everybody perfect.
Yeah.
Then some songs we want everybody to be minutely perfect. You know.
But some you'd have parts where one part would be not perfect, like real that, and then the melodies would be, you know, pretty much more refined.
Yeah. Sometimes I get so refined and I do it on purpose. You know, so I know some people say, "Oh, they funky. I'm gonna make you eat that." You can't slate funk, because we can do anything in funk that you can do in any other music, but how you place it in there, it was. And to me, if you could dance to it, fine. And when we put the hand claps on flashlight, I wanted to. Bootsy and Bernie both told me it's too loud.
I want to make sure people could dance. So
I wanted them to flex when they hit that. The be so loud that you ran your hand across the CD.
That
You
was
feel
because the
the
playback was so loud at the time in the studio.
He said,